well, it's low-key revenge because he broke my favorite coffee mug, but I would feel really bad. Anyways, this is Ed, little Eddie. He's a little special now, obviously, but look how cute he is. Look how cute he is. And he makes a different noise as compared to Brian. It's softer, I think. Softer. Much softer. So we're going to be using Eddie today. Little Eddie, and we're going to be going over Dean Corll. Dean Corll. If you've never heard of Dean Corll, I don't blame you because I never had either until I was listening to a podcast and they went over him. And oh my god. So like, there's not a lot known about him, which we'll get into as to why. But he was really terrible. He held the record for most. I have hair on my face, I'm so sorry. He held the record for most kills for like, I think a couple months or a year before Sir John Wayne Gacy came in and swooped that title with 33, I believe. Where is it? 28. Dean Corll had 28. So, pretty close. In fact, it is said that, I think, Gacy himself said that he used Corll as inspiration to some things, and you'll see why with, like, when it comes to, like, trigger warning, like, genital mutilation, like, and, Mr. Dean, he was super gay, just like Ed Gein, so he liked little boys, about the same age as Gacy, actually, as well. Okay, but before we get into it officially, I want to show you something. I know we're like 5 minutes into the video. I want to show you something that I did today at work, and it's so cute, and I want to show somebody. We got a new nurse at work, and she was cleaning out her desk because like there was another nurse there and they just never cleaned anything out. Like when I moved in, oh my god, I had to clean so much stuff out of the pharmacy, it was ridiculous. Anyways, so they found this little clipboard. Look how tiny it is. Like, it is so cute. And so I decided to put the Lisa Frank stickers on them. And I did the back too. And so I did the back too. And there's like the unicorn. I lost my words for a second. A little, I always loved a little golden retriever. You know, the thing is I never really looked into the Lisa Frank lore. I just always liked their merchandise, like their pins, and oh my god, I loved their pins. I could never really afford their binders because they were a little expensive and we were poor, but like I'd always get their sticker books and their coloring books because they were super cheap, and oh my god, I loved their coloring books at Dollar Tree. They were the best, like the absolute best. And so, Dollar General, we went to Dollar Tree, and that's where I found the sticker book that I used to sticker this, and I'm gonna Mod Podge it so that the stickers don't come off. But I thought it was so cute. I could use it in a cute little role play on the channel. Were you a Lisa Frank person? What Lisa Frank animal, thing, creature did you like best? I honestly loved the Dalmatians, but I never knew how to color them because like they were always black and white. They never like, you know what I mean? I liked the Dalmatians, and I really liked the Husky too. I liked that he was purple. Maybe I should look into the Lisa Frank lore. Anyways, let us commence sexual activity with a youth male, usually. He abducted, raped, tortured, and murdered 28 teenage boys and young men between 1970 and 73 in Houston, Texas, and Pasadena, Texas. Pasadena. I've lived in Houston. I've been to so many of these places. It is absolutely insane that I didn't know anything about this case, and that is all due to the fact of the police. Like, they mishandled this thing so terribly. I recommend you read this article that I may actually just read on my channel if I'm allowed to do that, because it's an excellent article. I'm gonna make that another video if I can. It is just very good article, very in-depth. I used it in the outline. I used the podcast in the outline. I have Wikipedia, some articles, anyways, so it's just, it's so insane to me that I've never heard about this man, but like I said, not much is known about him, not because he never talked, he died. So this man had 2 accomplices, one of which shot him to death, and their confessions are the only reason we know anything about this case. I'm really congested, and I am gonna hate editing this video, but anyways, he was known as the Candyman or the Pied Piper, which is disgusting. He was known as the Candyman because his family owned a candy company that he would actually give out free samples to the little children, but especially the little boys. As I said, he was aided by 2 teenagers, David Owen Brooks and Elmer Wayne Henley. Elmer Wayne Henley. Also, as I said, all of this comes to light because Henley fatally shoots him in the chest and face, I think. They are known as the Houston mass murderers, and they are known and considered to be the worst case, an example of serial murder in U.S. history, just because of how it was handled. Like, looking into some of the stories of the families, it was really sad. Like, no one believed these people, and we'll get into it. So, because Wayne shot I think he goes by Wayne. He doesn't like Elmer because Wayne shot Corll. We don't really know much about him or his motives or anything outside of what the 2 boys have said, and what his mother has said. You see, Dean Corll was a bit of a mama's boy, but he was I don't know, it's weird. So, we think she has a tendency to, they think that she has a tendency to lie, obviously, and it's said that she mentioned that there was never any real abuse, it's just, but then, she sends him off to camp. Okay, so he was born December 24th, 1939 in Fort Wayne, Indiana. He was the firstborn child of Mary Emma Robinson and Arnold Edwin Corll. It said that he rarely socialized with other children, and he also, like, I don't understand how you rarely, because she says, like, he rarely socialized with other children, but he showed concern for well-being of others, and it's like, did he? Mary described him as a loyal, obedient, helpful, loving, and good, normal boy. He's a good old boy. In last podcast, they do the whole thing where, like, they talk about how, like, Southern moms will just be like, oh, they're just good old boys. He's just a good boy. Just a good old boy. And it's like, I've seen it. It's kind of true. What do you think of Ed? He kind of cute, right? He cute. He pretty cute. So, at the age of 7, he is, like, he suffers a undiagnosed case of rheumatic fever. Like, how? I don't understand. But I take it that Mary didn't really pay a lot of attention to her children. It felt like she did a lot of things for her husbands, not children. It wasn't recognized until a doctor found Corll found that he had a heart murmur in the 1950s. In 1950. I can't stand still. Usually I sit for these. Now I'm standing. It's weird. We're gonna be moving in October, and I'm gonna have a new setup, and that's gonna be nice. Anyways, he was told to stop going to PE because of this. So his birth parents tried to reconcile, and remarried the same year in 1950. They moved to Pasadena, Texas. They divorced again in 1953. Because, like, what is a stable childhood home? Mary gained full custody, which is common, but the boys remained with regular contact with their father. She then marries a traveling clock salesman named Jake West. The family moved to Vidor, Texas, which is funny because that's where my ex, Jake, is from. It's just funny. Vidor is a sunset town. Just some funny little information for you to have if you don't know what a sunset town is. It's a very racist term applied to, what is the term? You better get your out of town before the sun sets or something, like before the sun sets on it or something. I don't know. I don't remember. It's really racist and awful and terrible. But yeah, they moved to Vidor, Texas. She actually buys a praline. I say praline. She bought a praline recipe and starts a small candy company out of her garage. So again, like, go her. So him and his younger brother actually run the candy machines while their mom, oh no, they package it too. What does it say? Younger brother run the candy making machines and packing products while the father sells them on his sales route. Sorry, it's a little dark. I can't read my outline. few girls. Speaking of girls, I didn't know where to put this in, so I guess I'm gonna put it in here. As he got older, he did actually have a girlfriend through the entire thing. Like, they even, like, had sex a couple times, and, like, he, literally one of the times that they were having sex, he just stopped and just said, like, no, thank you, I'm done. And, like, they never did it again. Anytime they had a date, he would, like, show up with a van full of kids, like, young boys. It was really weird. She was, like, this lady with, like, 2 young kids, and it was strange. But back in high school, he did play the trombone in band, which he loved, and he graduated in 1958. Nothing really remarkable to tell. He moved to the northern outskirts of Houston to be closer to the city where the product was sold. They actually named their new shop the Pecan Prince, which I think is cute. Pecan Prince, Pecan Prince. So in 1960, Corll moves to Indiana, like I said earlier, to live with his widowed grandmother at the request of his mother. And it's really weird because it's like, she said this is where he got his sexual education. Like, you're gonna go live on a farm with your widowed grandmother and your uncle, and he's gonna teach you how cows fuck, and that's gonna teach you how to, like, do you see why he would probably never want to touch a human woman ever? Like, no thank you, no thank you, it's just terrible. And, like, the whole thing is, she's like, oh yeah, he was a good boy, but, like, why send him off to a farm? And, like, you really thought that was sufficient education? It's just weird. So 2 years later, he moves back to Houston. He actually gets his own apartment that is located above the shop in Houston Heights to help with the candy shop. Like, he moves back to help with the candy business. So in 1963, a year later, Mary and Jake get a divorce, and she opens up a new candy company. She names it the Corll Candy Company. Dean is the vice president, and the youngest brother was the secretary treasurer. During this time, there was actually a couple complaints from male teenage employees, specifically one that claimed he was making sexual advances towards him, but the teenager was fired. Like, they went away, but in this instance, the little boy was fired. Not a little boy, he was a teenager, but, like, still. He was drafted into the Army on August 10th, 1964. He had basic training at Fort Polk, Louisiana, and then later Fort Benning, Georgia, to train as a radio repairman. He was permanently assigned to Fort Hood, Texas, which I live nearby, actually. Sorta nearby. I think my headphones are gonna die, so if you randomly see me without headphones, it's gonna be because my headphones died. According to military records, Corll's service was uneventful, which is kind of, like, it kind of seems to be across the bar when it comes to military service and serial killers. Sorry, I didn't mean to bump you like that. completed military service, which makes sense. So, okay, I don't know what that was. Kind of freaked me out though. Anyways, apparently, so if I remember correctly, Corll's mother writes a letter to the governor or somebody to the draft or something like that, and Corll also applies for a hardship discharge on the grounds that basically he was needed at the candy company. Little Corll was needed at the company. He needed to make candy. Of course, the request was granted, and he was honorably discharged on June 11th, 1965. He only served 10 months. Man, that freaked me out. My heart is still like, meh. In 1965, Dean returns to his VP position, and the Corll Candy Company relocates to 22nd Street. It is directly across from Elms Elementary School. This enabled Corll to give free candy samples to the children. He would give them to all children, like I said, but especially teenage boys. This named him the Candyman, or Pied Piper. He was the pleasant, smiling Candyman of the Heights. So there was a small workforce, and he was seen to behave flirtatiously towards several teenaged male employees. In fact, he installed a pool table at the back of the factory so that employees and local youths could hang out. Just grody, just grody. Nobody thought this was weird, or at least nobody, openly said it was weird. They just let it happen, and it's just gross. Soon after, his parents get a divorce. His mother lives in Houston, and his father lives in Houston, and his mother lives in Beaumont. In 1967, he befriends 12-year-old David Brooks. He's a 6th grade boy that Dean would give candy to. They quickly became constant companions. He regularly socialized with Corll and the various teenage boys who hung out at the back of the factory. They also took trips to South Texas beaches together. So, Brooks later commented in jail that Corll was the first adult male who did not mock his appearance, and so he saw Corll as sort of like a father figure. Corll was also constantly giving him money whenever he asked. In 1969, 2 years later, making David 12, 13, 14, about 14 years old, a sexual relationship develops upon Corll's urging. Corll would pay Brooks in cash and gifts to allow Corll to perform fellatio on Brooks. Brooks drops out of high school and moves to Beaumont. When he would visit his father, he would also visit Corll. Again, his father lived in Houston. Corll would also allow him to stay in his apartments whenever he wanted to, which was kind of cool. I mean, like, Corll was kind of cool to this guy, other than, like, sexually abusing him and grooming him since childhood. Like, it's just, he's not a good guy. He's just, like, it's so weird that, like, these parents just let their children around these kids. And, like, that's what I was gonna say. There was a story of, like, where a mother couldn't find her son, and so she, like, went to the school and, like, went to the candy factory and dragged her son back because her son was bothering a good man. Like, what? Like, don't bother that word. Like, what? It's so weird. So, in 1968, the Corll Candy Company closes. His mother and half-sister moved to Colorado after a very bad, failed marriage. Oh my god. So she meets this dude through, like, a 70s dating app. It's a like questionnaire that you fill out that gets read through a computer, that then the results, like, whoever matches the closest gets spit back out. And so she, like, meets this sailor. Like, what is he? He's what does that say? Some kind of sailor. And, like, he was a seaman. He was a seaman. Who was violent and abusive. This is her third husband, her fourth marriage. Okay, guys, like, this woman was not right in the head. There was an instance where she was trying to get away from her husband, so she goes to the candy company before it closed down, and he, like, stalks her and, like, tries to talk to all of her friends and employees, and finally tells her that she would have the prettiest flowers on her grave. And at her funeral, you'll have the prettiest flowers at your funeral. And so then they get a divorce, and she moves to Colorado with her child. Corll decides to stay in Texas, though. He's worked hard. He's done a lot here. He did, like, a lot of candy samples were given out, if you understand what I mean. He begins working at Houston Lighting and Power as an electrician. He talks to his mother on the phone, but never sees her again. So, between 1970 and 1973, Corll is known to have killed a minimum of 28 people at the various residents that he resided in, because this man moved a lot. They were aged 13 to 20, with the majority being in their mid-teens, with most being abducted from Houston Heights. They were often lured into Corll's various vehicles with offers of a party or lift. They were then tricked into donning handcuffs or simply grabbed by force. Sound familiar? They were then stripped naked and either tied to Corll's bed or plywood torture board, which hung in Corll's room. And when I say a plywood torture board, I mean a plywood torture board. It is like, I think we'll get into the measurements, but, like, you would strap these people to this board and, like, it was, oh, here's the measurements, 2.5 feet wide by 8 feet long, with manacles at the feet and the head. Apparently my downstairs neighbors decide that they're gonna yell at their kid. I'm sorry, guys. So, they dildo into their rectum. Just really terrible, awful, like, psychological manipulation as well. Like, he pitted two against each other and then, like, made each other watch, and it's just very terrible, terrible stuff that this man did, who then John Wayne Gacy just followed. Trigger warning again. David Henley said in his confession that, quote, Dean would screw all of them and sometimes suck them and make them suck him, and then he would kill them. I'm gonna go ahead and take my headphones off because it's beeping, so hold on one second. Okay, we're back. I put on my other cat ears that match my hair better, and it's so weird not having my headphones on. Anyways, where were we? David Henley said in his confession that Dean would screw all of them and sometimes suck them and make them suck him, then he would kill them. The bodies were then disposed of by wrapping it in plastic sheeting and buried in one of 4 spots. He had a rented boat shed. There was a beach on the Bolivar Peninsula, a woodland area near Lake Sam Rayburn, and a beach in Jefferson County. So a lot of why the police were, like, quote-unquote duped is because he forced them to write or phone home explaining their disappearance or sudden departure. He also would retain keepsakes like their keys. Usually he liked keys. I really do be a cat though. So, let's see. His first murder. We are there, ladies and gents, them and theys. On September 25th, 1970, right around the corner actually, Jeffrey Conan, 18-year-old college freshman who was hitchhiking with another student from University of Texas to his parents' home in Houston, back when you can hitchhike everywhere. Well, apparently not, because, like, he got murdered. He was dropped off alone at the corner of Westheimer Road and South Foss Road near Uptown. I don't know how it's said. He likely offered likely offered Conan a ride home. So, Corll lived in an apartment in Yorktown, on Yorktown Street near the intersection with Westheimer Road. That's why they speculate that, like, he saw him and was like, hey, do you want to come and party here? Because that was his ruse. On August 10th, 1973, 3 years later, Brooks led the police to Conan's body. He was buried at High Island Beach. He was buried beneath a large boulder covered with lime, wrapped in plastic, naked, and bound hand and foot with nylon cord, suggesting he had been violated. It said that the manner of this disposal was like, it indicated that this couldn't have been, or shouldn't have been, his first murder. Like, it just points that there was evidence, like, points that there should be evidence to other murders, but there never was any. They never found any more than the 28 that they found here. Forensic scientists claimed Conan had died of asphyxiation. Asphyxiation. And, like, so he deuces out. He sees the two boys strapped to the bed and just leaves. Like, he stays away for a couple days, but then returns. Get this, Corll says that he was creating porn for a human trafficking ring, and that the boys were sold into this ring. Corll also says that he will pay Brooks $200 for every boy that he brings him. And he's reluctant at first, but then eventually agrees. And Corll actually buys him a Corvette for his birthday later that year. And Corll then tells him, like, yo, dude, I was actually lying. I do kill these boys. And, Brooks just continues bringing boys. So, December 13th, 1970, Brooks lures in two 14-year-old Spring Branch boys to Corll's Yorktown apartment. James Glass and Danny Yates. Glass was actually an acquaintance of Brooks who had previously visited Corll's apartment. Like, Corll threw parties. Like, he had, I believe, like a little shed. Was it Corll? He had like a little shed, and he would like throw parties back there, and there was a light, and anytime someone was in it, he would like get a light in his apartment. I think that was him. And it was like, so he was very popular with these boys. No boys allowed though. I mean, no girls allowed. Those girls allowed. Brooks says that both boys were tied to opposite sides of the torture board before being raped, strangled, and buried in a boat shed. Should I just say that this whole episode, this whole video is a trigger warning? Like, do I need to specifically say trigger warning after every one? Because I don't think I'm going to remember that. Just trigger warning, okay? When the bodies were found, they were found with electrical cord, with alligator clips attached to each end, indicating that they were tortured. I don't understand what all this weird noise is. January 30th, 1971, Brooks and Corll encountered two brothers walking home from a friend's house, Donald and Jerry Waldrop. They are both raped, strangled, and buried in the boat shed. Then, between March and May of 1971, Corll abducts and kills 3 victims, all of whom lived in Houston Heights and were buried between the rear of the boat shed. Brooks helped with all of these abductions. There was Rendell Harvey. He was a 15-year-old boy who was last seen by his family on March 9th. He was killed by a single gunshot wound to the head. There was David Hilligeist, 13, and Gregory Malley Winkle, who was 16. They were abducted and killed together on the afternoon of May 29th. Both children knew Corll from the candy company. Winkle actually worked there with his mother. Hilligeist was the kid who would be constantly dragged away saying, like, don't mess with a working man. And both families actually started a frantic search for these children and never found either of them because they never believed that they just ran away. Like the cops were telling them, like Houston PD told them, oh, they just ran away. You heard the message. You saw this. Like, all of these people were like, no, there's no way that he would have just done this. There's no way, like, and so yeah, it's just really sad. The Hill guy's family actually, like, they were gonna have a vacation the next day. He had put out money that he was gonna spend. He had bags packed. Like, why would he have ran away? They received a phone call saying that the boys had gone to the beach with friends, and the Hill guy's family, believing so adamantly that he didn't just run away, he's not just out with friends, like, he's gone, something's wrong. They hired a private investigator who was then arrested by Houston PD for practicing with an expired license. They then hired psychics who, like, took them all over Houston. Like, it's just so sad what happened to these people. There was actually, like, Dorothy, the mom, would constantly call Houston PD, and so she said that Mally had a friend who drove a Plymouth GTX and told the police that a GTX was seen driving through the neighborhood with the plates of TMF 724. TMF 724. If they would have ran these plates, it would have led back to Dean Corll. Like, this man was so sloppy when it came to his abductions. He would have, if the police were just a little bit more interested, but no. So both families actually printed posters offering a reward for information, and there was, like, a bunch of people who came, but one particular boy came to help put up posters of his missing friend, Mr. Wayne Henley. He lived down the street from the Hill guys and was a lifelong friend of David's. On June 1971, Corll moves to an address on San Felipe Street. On August 10th, 1971, Brooks and Corll encounter 17-year-old Reuben Watson Haney. He is an acquaintance of Brooks who was walking home from a movie theater. He's persuaded to attend a party at Corll's new address. He's strangled and buried at the boat shed. September 1971, Corll moves again to an apartment in the Heights. Brooks helps with 2 abductions/murders at this time. One person was kept for 4 days. So, this is when about Henley starts becoming involved. He was described as a brash teenager. He had some juvenile assault charges. He drank, smoked, and chased girls. And he could usually be found at one of the 3 local hangouts. Those being the swimming pool, totes cool. The Long John Silver's on 23rd, totes cool. Or the Jack in the Box on 20th, totes cool, dude. He was so fucking cool. He had a difficult and abusive relationship with his dad. He drank, and then he would beat his wife and children, which, like, usually happens with not very good people. I feel like standing up, I have so much room for activities. But also my legs hurt. We're like an hour in, and we've got like 10 more pages. divorced in 1970, and he drops out of school to help his mother make ends meet. He's introduced to Corll by Brooks in 1971. So it's kind of suspected that Henley was actually supposed to be a victim, but Corll decided that he would make a better accomplice. Henley is said to, after he gets, I don't know where I was trying to go with that sentence. Henley says after the fact that, quote, we hit it off. He was this smart, clean-cut, nicely dressed man. He listened to me. He explained things to me. At first, he offered to sell Henley anything. He offered to sell anything that Henley brought him, even if it was stolen. He then offered Henley $200 to bring him boys, saying that he was involved with a, quote, white slavery ring operating in Dallas. So he eventually, he ignores the request, ignores it, but then eventually starts viewing him as a big brother, saying, I'll be honest with you, it was important that Dean liked me. He was kind. On February 19th, 1972, Corll moves to 925 Schuler Street. So, Henley's family begins struggling financially, and so he begins accepting Dean's offer. He lures one boy with long hair into the car and Corll's apartment with an offer to smoke some pot. Henley uses a rouse that he and Corll plan to make the youth don handcuffs. He was bound and gagged when Henley left and returned the next day, where Corll paid him $200. Henley didn't go to the police, and he still didn't go to the police when he confessed to killing Henley's friend David Hillegeist, but insisted that Henley bring him another boy. So, on March 24th, 1972, they encounter 18-year-old Frank Akiri, who is actually an acquaintance of Henley's. They lure him to Corll's home with the offer of drugs and beer. He is forced into handcuffs and dragged into the bedroom before being raped and strangled. I think this is when he intended, this is when he told Corll. This is when Corll told Henley that he killed the boys, because, it says that Henley stated he tried to persuade Corll not to kill him, and Corll had said, told Corll had raped, tortured, and killed the previous youth that Henley had brought him, and he intended to do the same with this one. So this is where he, figured out, oh, so you killed those people and killed, okay. So Henley assisted Corll and Brooks in burying Akiri at High Island Beach. April 20th, 1972. Mark Scott is a 17-year-old friend of Henley and Brooks. He actually attended a party at Scott's. Henley did, and enjoyed himself so much he was the last to leave. Poor little Henley. So when he was abducted, Scott fought back when he was being restrained, and even attempted to stab Corll with a knife. He cut his shirt but didn't break skin. Henley ran to get a gun while Corll attempted to restrain him. So as soon as Henley points the gun at Scott, he just gave up, as Brooks stated later. He's then tied to the torture board before being raped, tortured, and strangled by Henley and Corll before being buried at High Island Beach. Apparently, Brooks and Henley only helped with strangulation and killing. They never did the raping, which I do not believe for a second, especially Henley, because at one point Henley never does. He tries to get out but can't. And so, like, I think he liked it. Brooks stated that the next abductions that Henley assisted in, he was, quote, especially sadistic. There was 17-year-old Billy Bolch and Johnny Delhomme, who was 16. They were both tied to Corll's bed after being tortured and raped. Henley manually strangles Bolch before shouting, "Hey, Johnny," at Delhomme before shooting him in the forehead, then strangling him as Delhomme pleaded, "Wayne, please don't," because he didn't, like, he shot him in the forehead, but it kind of, like, didn't kill him, so it was just, Henley, see what I say about he liked it. Both were buried at Highland Beach. Let's see how many pages. I think I only have 18. We've got 9 more to go. So we're in the middle. There is William Ridinger. He was 19, and he was raped and tortured by Corll. Brooks claimed that he was persuaded by Corll to be released, and he was. On one occasion, Henley knocks Brooks unconscious. When Brooks wakes up, he is tied to the bed, being assaulted by Corll repeatedly before releasing him. Brooks continues to assist Corll, even though he assaulted him. Like, it's just so strange, and I just wish we knew the whole story, like, to know what actually happened, because, like, Henley didn't say everything, and he doesn't say anything now, and Brooks says everything. Like, it's just weird. In 1972, the summer, Corll moves to an apartment at Westcott Towers. He kills 2 more victims at this residence. Like, did you see what I mean about him moving? He moves so much, and there were bullet holes at all of these places. Like, apparently he would play music really loud, and that's how he would mask the sound. But, like, I feel like I'd know. So on July 19th, there is 17-year-old Stephen Sickman. He is savagely bludgeoned on his chest with a blunt instrument before he was strangled and buried in the boat shed. And then on August 21st, there was Roy Bunton, who was 19. He was gagged with a section of towel and his mouth bound with duct tape. He was shot twice in the head and buried in the boat shed. Neither of these victims were named by Brooks or Henley after the arrest. I wonder if at this point he had, like, pitted them against each other and was, like, making them do things, you know, like, why neither of them had said anything about these 2, and these were, like, terrible, like, this kid was, it was just, you know, like, they weren't terrible murders. I mean, they're all terrible, but these ones. Anyways. So on October 2nd, 1972, Brooks and Henley encounter Wally J. Semino and Richard Hembry. They are lured into Brooks' Corvette and then taken into Corll's residence. Semino actually phoned home and shouted "Mama" into the receiver before the call was disconnected. The next morning, Hembry was accidentally shot in the mouth by Henley before being left to bleed out for several hours, but before both were strangled to death and buried in a common grave in the boat shed above James Glass and Danny Yates. November 1972, Willard Branch, 18. He disappeared while hitchhiking from Mount Pleasant to Houston. He was gagged and emasculated before being buried in the boat shed. Yeah, it's what you think it means. Richard Kepner, 19, disappeared while on his way to a phone booth. He was strangled and buried at Highland Beach. Do you see why I sit? Because, like, I move around a lot, and I feel like that's distracting. Not like you're watching this. weeks of moving, Corll kills 17-year-old Joseph Lyles. He's known by Corll and Brooks because he lived on the same street. March 7th, 1973, Corll moves to 2020 Lamar Drive. No known victims were killed between February 1st and June 4th, and it's thought to do because he had like a medical emergency. He actually experienced a hydrocele. I had to look up what this is. A hydrocele. Let me grab the paper. A hydrocele is a type of swelling in the scrotum. This swelling happens when fluids collects. This swelling happens when fluid collects in the thin sac that surrounds a testicle. A hydrocele can form due to an injury or because of a type of swelling within the scrotum. Inflammation might be caused by an infection in the testicle or in the small coiled tube at the back of each testicle. In case you were wondering, all the men watching this went like, oh. I went, oh, are you kidding me? It sounds painful. Henley tried and failed to enlist in the army at this time. He was rejected due to his limited education. He was later quoted as saying, "I couldn't leave anyways. If I wasn't around, I knew Dean would go after one of my little brothers, who he always liked a little too much." June 1973, the rate of killings and brutality of each increased dramatically. Henley said it was like a bloodlust. Quote, Dean would get these short, jerky movements. He would start smoking a cigarette, which he usually never did, and he'd say he needed to do a new boy. Do a new boy. Like, it's just gross. It's just gross. June 4th, William Ray Lawrence, 15, was abducted by Corll and Henley. He was abused and tortured for 3 days before being strangled and buried at Lake Sam Rayborn. There was 20-year-old Raymond Stanley Blackburn. He was abducted, strangled, and buried at Lake Sam Rayburn. On July 7th, 1973, there was Homer Luis Garcia, who was 15. He meets Henley at Coach's driving school in Bel Air. He phones his mother telling her he is staying the night at a friend's. He's shot and left to bleed to death in Corll's bathtub before being buried at Lake Sam Rayburn. On July 12th, 1973, 17-year-old John Sellers is found shot to death and buried at High Island Beach. So, like I said, Brooks was trying to take a step back, so he actually marries his pregnant girlfriend, fiance, and moves to an apartment outside of the Heights. Henley becomes Corll's sole proprietor of victims, assisting with 3 more abductions/murders. Between July 19th and the 25th, they abduct Michael Bolch, 15. He was the brother of a previous victim, so he has now killed 2 sets of brothers. He was last seen on his way to a haircut. He was strangled and buried at Lake Sam Rayborn. And then there's Charles Cobble and Marty Ray Jones. They were abducted together, and Henley buried both bodies in the boat shed by himself. And the last murder is on August 3rd, 1973. James Stanton Dremala, who was 13. He was abducted by Corll and Brooks while riding his bike collecting glass bottles to resell. He was tied to the torture board, raped, tortured, and strangled with a cord before being buried in the boat shed. Okay, I think it's done now. There was like 8 cars that just passed, and I'm like kicking myself thinking like, oh my god, you could have had like a loud hobby and not a quiet one. And I'm thinking of starting a second channel that is a loud channel. If you'd want to subscribe to it, I may put it in the description box. Anyways, so his last victim is James Stanton Dremala, who was 13. He was abducted by Corll and Brooks while riding his bike collecting glass bottles to resell. He had been tied to the torture board, raped, and strangled with a cord before being buried in the boat shed. So on the evening of August 7th, Henley invites 19-year-old Timothy Cordell Curley to attend a party at Corll's. Brooks was not present. He arrived at Corll's house and commenced sniffing paint and drinking until midnight when they left. They ran into 15-year-old Rhonda Louise Williams, who had been beaten by her father that evening, and accepted the offer to return with Henley and Curley to Corll's home. I don't know what's going on with my eyeliner right now, but oh my god, that's terrible. They arrived at Corll's around 3 a.m. Corll became furious with Henley for bringing Corll to his house and, quote, ruining everything. No girls allowed. No girls allowed. No girls allowed. Henley explains the situation with Williams and her father, and Corll calms down and offers all of them beer and weed. So they begin drinking and smoking and huffing paint, and all of them pass out. Henley wakes to Corll handcuffing him. The other 2 teenagers were bound with nylon rope and gagged with adhesive tape. Curley was naked. Upon seeing Henley awake, Corll takes the gag out of his mouth. He tells him how angry he is that Henley brought a girl to his home and then he was going to kill all 3 of them. Let me redo that. Tell him how angry he is that Henley brought a girl into his home and that he was going to kill all 3 of them. Quote, man, you blew it bringing that girl. I'm going to kill you all, but first I'm going to have my fun. Like, he's just a little kid. He's just a child. He's a giant fucking man-child. So he kicks Williamson, the girl, in the ribs and takes Henley into the kitchen. Henley, at this point, tries to calm Corll down, as Corll threatens to shoot him. But he kept saying how he was going to kill everyone. Oh, I'm just going to kill everyone. I'm going to kill you, and I'm going to kill everyone. Henley agrees to participate in the torture and murder of the other 2 as Corll releases him. Corll then drags Curley and Williams into the bedroom and ties them to the torture board. Curley on his stomach, Williams on her back. Corll instructs Henley to cut away Williams' clothes. He tells Henley that while he rapes and kills Curley, Henley will rape and kill Williams. Williams is actually the girlfriend of Frank Aguirre, by the way. So, Corll begins assaulting Curley, and as Corll does that, Henley begins cutting away Williams' clothes, and she gets woken up by this. She begins asking Curley, like, is this for real? Like, what's going on? And he's like, yes. Is this for real? Yes. Williams responds, are you gonna do anything about it? So Henley grabs Corll's gun and shouts, you've gone far enough. Dean, I can't go on any longer. I can't have you kill all my friends. Curly and walks towards Henley, stating, "Kill me, Wayne. You won't do it." Henley fires at Corll and hits him in the forehead, but the bullet didn't fully penetrate. Corll continues towards Henley. Henley fires another 2 rounds at Corll, hitting him in the shoulder. Corll runs out of the room, hitting the wall in the hallway. Henley fires 3 more times at Corll. He hits his lower back and shoulder as Corll slides down the wall and dies. Okay, I'm just gonna go ahead. I'm sorry. So, Henley later stated that the way he reacted during the confrontation would have made Dean proud, because Dean had taught him to react quickly and forcefully, which I just think is so weird to even say, like, oh yeah, he'd be proud about how I killed him. So Henley releases Williams and Curly, and they begin discussing what actions need to be taken. Henley suggests just leaving. Curly replied that they should call the police, so Henley looks up the Pasadena PD phone number. So the police are called at 8:24 a.m. With Henley saying, "Y'all better come right now. I just killed a man." As the teenagers waited for the police to arrive, Henley makes a couple of comments. Just a couple little weird comments. He mentions how he had done that 4 or 5 times, referencing shooting someone. He also mentions to Curly, "If you wasn't my friend, I could have gotten $200 for you." If you wasn't my friend, I could have got $200 for you. As the police officers read Henley his Miranda rights, he responds with, quote, "I don't care who knows about it. I have to get it off my chest." So now comes confession times. Henley initially stated that he killed Dean in self-defense. Curly and Williams both corroborated the story. Like, it could have ended here. And we would have never known about it. It would have just been some random dude with all this weird shit in his house. And, like, that's the end. But Henley got questioned, and he started confessing to helping Corll alongside Brooks. He confessed to helping procure boys and being paid for it. He stated it was for a Dallas-based organization for, quote, homosexual acts, sodomy, maybe later killing, but then later discovered Corll was killing the victims himself. Like, he confessed to everything. He confessed to participating in torture and mutilations of 6 or 8 victims prior to their murder. He also confessed to burying the victims in a boat shed, as well as Lake Rayborn and High Island Beach. So the police were skeptical at first. They thought Dean's murder was the sole homicide, and it was the result of a drug-fueled fisticuff that turned deadly. Henley insisted and recalled 3 of the victims' names: Cobble, Hellegeist, Jones. The police thought something might have been going on since they were all listed as missing at the Houston Police Department headquarters. The police also saw that the room floor was covered in plastic sheeting. They also found the torture board, a large hunting knife, rolls of clear plastic sheeting, a portable radio rigged with a pair of dry cells to give increased volume, a number of dildos, thin glass tubes, and a length of rope. When they investigated Corll's van, they discovered the rear windows of the van were sealed with opaque blue curtains. They also discovered a coil of rope, a swatch of rug covered in soil stains, and a wooden crate with air holes drilled in the sides. The pegboard walls inside the van were rigged with several hooks and rings as well. with air holes drilled in the sides in Corll's backyard with several strands of human hair found inside of it. So police accompany Henley to the boat shed. They discover a stolen half-stripped car, a child's bike, a large iron drum, water containers, 2 sacks of lime, and a large plastic bag full of teenage boys' clothing. So they got prison trustees to begin digging in the boat shed, and they soon discovered remains of a young blonde-haired boy laying on his side, encased in clear plastic, and buried beneath a layer of lime. What's the point of putting lime if you're gonna do plastic? Like, wouldn't you do lime, body, and plastic? I don't know. Anyway, they continued digging and unearthed the remains of more victims in various stages of decomp. Again, very John Wayne Gacy. Some were shot, some were strangled with the ligature still wrapped around their necks. All of the victims were sodomized, with most having evidence of sexual torture. This being pubic hairs being ripped out, genitals have been chewed on, objects inserted into their rectums, glass rods inserted into their urethra and then smashed, cloth rags that had been inserted into their mouths, and adhesive tape wound around their faces to muffle their screams. They said that the tongue of the first victim uncovered protruded out of his mouth. They also said that the mouth of the third victim found was so agape that all of the upper and lower teeth were visible. Like, can you imagine the torture that these people went through, these boys went through? That's how their bodies were after they died. Like, their face of just pure terror and pain and anguish. It's just terrible. Brooks presented himself to the HPD on August 8th and gave a statement. He denied any participation in the murders, but admitted to knowing Corll had raped and killed 2 youths in 1970. Henley gave a complete statement on the morning of August 9th. It detailed his and Brooks' involvement, admitting to assisting in strangling youths with Corll, as well as personally killing 9 victims. He accompanied police to Lake Sam Rayborn, where 2 additional bodies were found. They also found a second plywood torture board, rolls of plastic sheeting, shovels, and a sack of lime. Excavations continued on the boat shed on August 9th. Police found 9 more bodies. The 12th body bore evidence of sexual mutilation. The genitals were severed, and they were found inside a sealed plastic bag beside the body. Oh my god, that truck was there for like 5 minutes. We've got like 4 pages left. Can we just power through this? I really want McDonald's. So, where was I? Let's see. Brooks presented him to the police, gave a statement. He helped find more bodies. The 12th body bore evidence of sexual mutilation. His genitals were severed and placed inside a plastic bag, which were then put beside the body. So, that evening, August 9th, Brooks gave a full confession, but denied any direct participation in the killings. He said he was present at several killings and assisted in several burials, but never killed anybody. Of course. I also figured out what the banging was that I heard earlier that freaked me out. It was the little kid banging on his door because he doesn't want to go to bed. So he agreed to accompany police to Highland Beach and assist in searching for more bodies while there. And at It was the worst case of serial murder at the time in terms of number of victims. It had surpassed the previous record of 25 victims attributed to Juan Corona, who had been arrested in California in 1971. Excuse me. It stayed the highest until the arrest of John Wayne Gacy with 33 victims in 1978. So 5 years, this man held the record, and nobody has really heard of him or knows much about him. As I said, Gacy admitted to being influenced by press coverage of the Houston mass murders to manacle his victims prior to their abuse and murder, the handcuff trick. Bob Wright, who was a Houston radio reporter in 1973, was told by a detective that once the body count surpassed the record, the excavations were halted. Does that mean that there are more bodies down there? I doubt it at this point. But like, oh my god. Like, just what? California, so this is a snippet that I found in the article that I read that I want to read to y'all, that just tells the amount of reach that this case had, and it's so strange to me that I've never heard about it, and that it just did so much for, so a California legislator learned that the sex education books used in the state school was found among Corll's belongings. He wrote to Governor Ronald Reagan demanding that the book be withdrawn from California schools, in part because it suggested that homosexuality was not an abnormal behavior. I repeat, it suggested that homosexuality was not an abnormal behavior. Quote, perhaps you should take a trip to Texas and ask the parents of the 27 young boys if the unusual sexual expressions Corll engaged in should be considered abnormal. Like, yes, killing boys is abnormal. Being gay is not abnormal. Like, do you see what happened? Like, Police Chief Short ordered his officers to raid city's gay bars in Houston in a misguided attempt to make sure similar crimes didn't happen again, even though they never even touched gay bars. They never. Some residents circulated a petition requesting a nightly curfew of juveniles, forgetting that the most of the abductions occurred during broad daylight. It's always a way to twist it. It's always a way to make it into something that they want, it's just, people like, these boys died. Y'all can just take a second and be like, fuck, these boys died. You know what I mean? Like, 27, 28 young boys died. And it's about a gay thing. Like, so on August 13th, a grand jury was convened in Harris County to hear evidence against Wayne Hindley and Brooks. Witnesses included Williams and Curley, who testified to the events of August 7th and 8th leading to Corll's death, and William Ridinger, who testified to his experience at the hands of Corll. He was the boy that was let go. Jury listened to 6 hours of testimony, and on August 14th, they indicted Hindley on 3 counts of murder and Brooks on 1. Bail was set at $100,000 for each boy. Sometimes I forget that these are ASMR videos. I should be whispering. I'm just whispering into this mic for no reason. Soon I won't be whispering. Anyways, so the DA actually requested requested Henley undergo a psych eval, but his attorney denied this, stating it would violate Henley's constitutional rights. By the end of the grand jury, Henley had been indicted for 6 murders and Brooks for 4. Henley was not charged with killing of Corll, as it had been ruled self-defense on September 18th. So that's nice, I guess. His little broken hand, look at it. Oh well. So, Henley and Brooks were tried separately for their roles. Helmer Wayne Henley was tried in San Antonio on July 1st, 1974. He was charged with 6 counts of murder committed between March 72 and July 73. His prosecution called dozens of witnesses, including Gurley and Reidinger. Henley's written confession was used to incriminate him. His written confession was used to incriminate him. In one part, he described luring of 2 victims, Jones and Cobble. He described how the victims had one wrist and one ankle tied to the torture board, and the victims were told to fight each other, with the promise that the youth who beat the other to death would be allowed to live. As I told earlier. After several hours of this, Jones was tied to the board and forced to watch Corll assault, torture, and shoot Cobble before being raped and tortured and strangled with a Venetian blind cord. The state introduced 82 pieces of evidence, including the torture board and the boxes used to transport victims. Henley was advised by his defense not to take the stand. His attorneys cross-examined several witnesses but did not call any witnesses or experts for the defense. I'd like to see if I can read the court transcripts. I wonder if that's allowed. I'm gonna look into it. July 15th, 1974, counsels presented their closing arguments with the prosecution seeking life imprisonment and the defense a verdict of not guilty. The DA apologized for not being able to seek the death penalty, saying this case was, quote, the most extreme example of man's inhumanity to man I have ever seen. The jury deliberated for 92 minutes before finding Henley guilty of all 6 murders. What's 92 divided by 6? 9 and 2 don't go into each other. It's about 12, 2, 8. I don't know, like 8 minutes per case. No, 80. I don't know. Do that math for me. I'll do it. No, put it in the comments. Anyways, he was sentenced to serve each 99-year sentence consecutively. I have dog hair on my leg. He was sentenced to serve each 99-year sentence consecutively, which totaled to 594 years, and he was transferred to Huntsville Unit to begin his sentence. He was awarded a mistrial in December of 1978 after his appeal was upheld. He contended the jury had not been sequestered, that his attorney's objections to news media being present in the courtroom had been overruled, and that his defense team's attempt to present evidence contending that the initial trial should not have been held in San Antonio was overruled by the judge. Just a bunch of trial mumbo-jumbo for I didn't get a fair trial. The trial began on June 18th, 1979 in Corpus Christi. Attorneys tried to have his written statements ruled inadmissible, but it was overruled by the judge, which was like, duh. Defense again called no witnesses, but tried attacking the credibility of the written statement. They contended that evidence that the his confession was taken without his being informed of his legal rights, but it was dismissed. Henley is serving life imprisonment at Mark W. Michael Unit in Anderson County, Texas. He has parole applications dating back to July 1980, which all have been denied. He is next eligible for parole in October of 2025, so 2 years, fellas, 2 years. Brooks served his sentence at Terrell Unit near Rocheron, Texas. He actually died of COVID at a Galveston hospital on May 28th, 2020 at the age of 65. So he lived quite a long time in jail. Quite a long time. So I'm going to read the victims. There is quite a few. Jeffrey Allen Conan, James Eugene Glass, Danny Michael Yates, Donald Wayne Waldrop, Jerry Lynn Waldrop, Randall Lee Harvey, David William Milligeist, Gregory Malley Winkle, Reuben Watson Maney, Frank Anthony Aguirre, Mark Stephen Scott, Johnny Ray Delhomme, Billy Jean Bolch Jr., Stephen Kent, Sigmund Roy Eugene Bunton, Wally, I did it again, Wally J. Semino, Richard Edward Embry, Willard Carmen Branch Jr., Richard Allen Kepner, Joseph Allen Lyles, William Ray Lawrence, Raymond Stanley Blackburn, Homer Louis Garcia, John Manning Sellers, Michael Anthony Bolch, Marty Ray Jones, Charles Carey Cobble, James Stanton Dremala. So that is it, ladies, gents, they and thems. That is Dean Corll, the twisted candy man that you do not want to take candy from.